Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's a dog with you on a Monday. It's the 10th of December, 2018. Hard to believe we're, 2 weeks away today from Santa Claus starting to come our way. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Christmas Eve in 2 weeks. Well, a good friend, I haven't seen him forever, but he's in the house today. And, we talk about book tours. I didn't realize he was on Josh's show last week, but I'm glad to have him on my show. He is the Acting Seneca County Manager. Mitch Rowe is in the house. We're going to talk to him and talk about sports and a whole lot more here on the Weber Show. Stay tuned. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's good to have you alongside. I'm excited because Mitch is my guest today, and then next week, John LaManna, and then I'm off for 2 weeks because, God, my Mondays fall on a Christmas Eve and a New Year's Eve, so it couldn't be better. Well, first off, a guy who I used to see quite a bit when he was here as the county manager at the Board of Supervisors level, and he went away and did some other stuff. Mitch Rowe is in the house. Mitch, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me, dog.
I appreciate it, and we're going to get to Mitch in just 1 minute. We want to send a big congratulatory message from Weber this week because, last week we had Kevin Bostrom on. Kevin, of course, the owner of the Bostrom Farm Meats out in Stanley, New York on 5 and 20 heading to Canandaigua. And he made a little deal with his company that he was going to give away a country ham. Depending on your likes and shares, which we heard there was a phenomenal amount of likes and shares for this show. We thank the people that participated and also your wonderful comments. Kevin was a great guest, but he put the likes and shares and he was going to draw a name today. Well, John, one of the owners, called me about an hour and a half ago, and we are ready to announce that winner. I should have had Zach got a little drum roll. The winner of the country ham, thanks to the Bostrom Farms, is Mary D. Porter. Mary D. Porter, Clifton Springs, New York. Congratulations from the Bostrom Farms and Weber this week. You got to stop over and get yourself your country ham for the holidays. So congratulations, Mary D. Porter. And later on during the show, during our commercials, we'll be showing Kevin's Bostrom's wonderful logo, and then we're going to get some information regarding his company, and because they've agreed to come on as a sponsor starting in 2019. Well, back to Mitch. It's good to have you alongside. You getting excited for the holidays, the family as well? Or is it
getting excited, but haven't really gotten started yet. But as you indicated, we got a couple weeks yet.
So. Oh, I know you do. You got yeah. So you one of these guys that run around the last couple of days and put the charge on?
Waterloo Premium Outlet Mall comes in handy, for sure, no doubt.
That's right. Well, Mitch, for our viewers that may have missed Josh's show last week, talk a little bit about when you were here, how long you were here as our county manager, and what you did when you were away, and bring us up to speed.
My time in Seneca County began July 2nd, 2008. I had left a position with the town of Irondequoit in Monroe County. Mm-hmm. And came here initially as the Director of Planning and Community Development for the county. And after 3.5 years of holding that position, I don't know if you remember Suzanne Sinclair.
Oh, sure.
Suzanne was the county manager that I had interviewed with when I first joined the county employment in 2008. And then Suzanne announced that she was going to be leaving. I threw my hat in the ring for county manager, and through a couple of rounds of interviews, I ultimately was selected by the board and took the county manager's position January 1st, 2012. Held the position for 2 years. Moved to Seneca Falls when I became the county manager, bought a home on East Baird Street. Mm-hmm. My wife supported my career move to become the county manager, but she said, I'm not moving. She works for the City of Rochester. Our family's there. So for those 2 years, I lived here in Seneca Falls. My wife lived in Rochester. We made it work. And in late 13 into early 14, frankly, an unexpected opportunity presented itself for me to go back to work for the City of Rochester, where I had worked for almost 25 years. I was a casualty of an administration change in 2005. Bob Duffy had run for mayor after a career as police chief. I had supported another candidate, and there's a saying, to the victor goes the spoils. And so I left the city, went to Tonawanda for a couple of years, didn't feel it was a good fit for me. And so I came to Seneca County, and to kind of fast forward, then Mayor-elect Warren had reached out to me and had asked me if I would like to come back and be the Director of Planning and Zoning for the City of Rochester. I felt bad about the prospect of leaving. I honestly thought I'd finished my career here in Seneca County. But it basically came down to how do I tell my wife I won't come home. And so I lived with more than a little bit of regret after leaving in 2014 and going back. In all honesty, things didn't really work out the way I thought they were going back to Rochester, although I ultimately had 37 years of service, not as many as you had at Gould's, but close. And so earlier this year I retired. During the almost 4 years that I left Seneca County in 2014, I continued to follow affairs here, watching your show, FingerLakes1.com, Finger Lakes Times online, and I became aware in August that John Shepard had announced that he was resigning. I had talked to a couple supervisors informally and came down in late August and met with less than a quorum. We didn't violate any open meetings laws, met with less than a quorum of the board and talked about my coming back on an interim or an acting basis. It ended up being acting by board resolution. A couple of things that were going on that were important in terms of timing. Was the need to develop a county budget for 2019. Maybe we'll talk about the budget a little bit. The county was in the midst of a rather critical audit of the county's finances, and the south end of the county had seen what hopefully is a once-in-a-lifetime storm in the south end of the county, and the county's emergency manager had left before that. Mm-hmm. So coming back felt like the right thing to do. I had actually gone to work. After I retired in April, I'd gone to work for Landmark Society of Western New York, and I know I watched your show with Emil maybe last week or 2 weeks ago. Yeah. I have since proffered my resignation from the Landmark Society to be solely focused on Seneca County. So I will no longer have to live with the regret of having left, because I feel like I've come back at an important time, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you I do everything right. I make mistakes. But it's felt really good to be back. I'm not a candidate for permanent appointment. I'm just at that point in my career, so I'm really hopeful that the county will identify a really good person to come in and take the helm of the day-to-day operations for the long term.
As far as your ability to stay here until that happens, is it open-ended for you to stay for a while, determining how long it's going to take them to bring a new person in?
A couple things. There, as a pension recipient, there's a dollar amount that you can make within a calendar year without having to rescind and or jeopardize your pension. So that's one of the things that I'm looking at. The board has started a recruitment effort. They've solicited applications, and at the November 27th meeting of the board, which was committees, not full board, Chairman Bob Shipley did appoint a committee of 3 supervisors, Lee Davidson, Cindy Garlick-Lorenzetti, and Don Trout, to lead the recruitment effort, not only for county manager. A couple other things that are going on is longtime county attorney Frank Fisher is retiring effective January 8th. Kathy Corona, personnel director, who succeeded Frank Sinacropi when I was here before, is retiring in March. Roy Gates, 43-year employee of County Highway Department, just retired. So it's a serious period of transition for the county. So the board is actively considering applicants at the moment for county manager and county attorney. and I could, as a practical matter, absent a request, there are waivers that are granted. Mostly those go to law enforcement, not to mortal civilians. But as a practical matter, absent rescinding my pension or some kind of a waiver in that regard, I could stay till the middle of April of 19.
Well, that's important. And, just thinking about this, as you think about the attributes and the background of a good county manager, I know you've done a good job, and when you were here before, now you're back, and I've heard nothing but good things. In a nutshell, what areas of abilities would a woman or a man need to possess to come in, based on what you're seeing right now at the county level?
One of the important things, and this was one of the questions that the board asked me in 2011 when I was a candidate for county manager before, and I think is relevant now, is that with a Board of Supervisors form of government, our 14-member county board, they set the policy, they set the direction, and then from the county manager to the department heads down to the rank and file employees, it's our job to implement the policy and the direction that they give us. And so I think, on the one hand, you got 14 bosses as a county manager. On the other hand, the board acts collectively as a body, and so when those votes are cast, whether they're unanimous or they're mixed, it's your job to implement that policy. And so I think from a leadership perspective, that's an important thing to understand. A couple other things that I think are important is, when I left the city of Rochester at the end of 2005, not by choice, a lot of private sector managers were brought into the city of Rochester, and the reason I mention that is the public sector is very different than the private sector. You deal with unions, you deal, in the county's instances, you deal with mandates from the state that you have no choice in delivering those services. And so I think on paper you could have great private sector experience, but I do think public sector leadership experience is really important in a position like county manager. I started in 1981, frontline, went to school at night and kind of worked my way up. And so I think that the public sector experience is really important, and it's very different than the business world. And
I notice, speaking of what the board is dealing with, I couldn't help but notice my good friend Barry Porsche just getting elected as judge, kicking off his tenure starting in January. Is that correct? Yeah, January takes off, right?
There are two ways of saying it. Takes the bench or puts on the robe. I have a lot of friends from Rochester and Monroe County. I worked on some judicial campaigns over the years, so I playfully refer to it to putting the robe on.
But in defense, the board is now dealing with getting some district attorney help in there because of the fact that Barry won't be wearing those hats anymore.
So Barry came to the board, to the Public Safety Committee on the 27th, and talked about a couple things. That he made a commitment when he ran for office that he would handle the appeals rather than hiring those out and saving the taxpayers' money, and he's honored that. He also talked, in addition to the appellate work that he had done about, with his leaving and presumably First Assistant Mark Sinkowitz moving up, that would be another vacancy. So he started that conversation with the board on the 27th. Tomorrow is the monthly board meeting, and I talked a little bit with Josh last week about the vacancy committee, which is a subcommittee of the board that looks at when positions are open. Is it appropriate to fill them? What are the budget implications? Is the work demand still there for the position? So tomorrow, Mark's going to come in and talk with the vacancy committee about, to follow up on the conversation Barry had about filling those positions and what the budget implications are. We're also going to vote tomorrow night. The board's going to vote tomorrow night on the 2019 budget. There'll be a public hearing. There was one amendment. Frank Sinacropi, now elected county treasurer, Sinacropi, talked about a few things that he needed to add to the budget that he wasn't totally aware of at the time that we filed the budget with the board initially earlier last month.
You sent me a couple of notes that we could chew on, and one of the notes was a 318 corridor, which, of course, as you know, because you came back to the area, it's got a lot of possibilities. I visualize, I don't know what my age, I'm 73 and a half, but it'd be nice to see someday where you have a host of restaurants on 318, a couple of hotels maybe, different opportunities, because as you know, that's phenomenal down to the mall. Coming this way to Del Lago, a lot of opportunities. I know, you know, there's a lot of things with sewer district and all those kinds of things. Do you see that as something that's going to develop on 318 quicker than most people think it will happen, or is it something that we're looking down the road a bit?
A couple things. When I was here before, I had written a grant to the state of New York to start the initial design work to develop this 318 sewer corridor. A couple of things. Town of Junius has a plant that supports the Waterloo Outlet Mall, one of the biggest drivers of sales tax revenue for this county. And we were sensing then, and it's coming to hold true, that plant, we thought a few years ago and now are realizing it's reaching the end of its useful life. And so between the Waterloo Premium Outlet Mall, Petro, and now Del Lago Casino and Resort, that no disrespect to any of the other, you know, to the wineries and the tourism industry, which is very important, and to the other businesses we have, but that 318, 414 corridor, in terms of sales tax revenue, hotel motel tax revenue, and general development, is critical to Seneca County. And I think that this implementation of this 318, 414 sewer line, getting it fully up and running is critical. There are matters pending before the Town of Seneca Falls, Town of Tyre, Town of Junius, and the Seneca County Board of Supervisors through a multi-party intermunicipal agreement. Seneca Falls Town Board did vote 5-0 recently to allow Town Supervisor Lazaro to sign. Tyre and Junius, their boards have not voted yet, and the County Board of Supervisors has tabled their vote. There's a really important meeting tomorrow between all the parties. You know, Del Lago's looking at another hotel, which needs this 318 sewer corridor. As I mentioned, the town system that supports the outlet mall doesn't have much life left in it, as I understand it. And so it's really important to get this intermunicipal agreement done to support, A, what we have there now, but more importantly, to support, to your point, future growth in the corridor. And I think closing the deal on this sewer agreement between the towns and the villages, how the district's going to run, who's going to handle the flow, which ultimately, as it's conceived, would be Town of Seneca Falls, which has the capacity to do it. My gut tells me that there's some development waiting in the wings, waiting to see this deal closed between the three towns and the county. And so I'm going to do everything in my power to help resolve any questions that any of the municipalities have, and to make sure there's ink in the pen to execute those agreements.
Mitch Rowe is my guest today, and we may go a few minutes past 3:30 because I got a couple other topics I want to talk to Mitch about. But first, we got to pay homage to the people that make this show possible in the first place. I've been blessed, as I was telling people just the other day. I was telling Mitch, I've been blessed to have so many sponsors for so many years. So many sponsors have been with me back in the radio days and now this internet show for over 30-some years straight. Okay, folks, we got to send out some love to those great sponsors. Let's play those sponsor roll, my friend. Resort and Casino has something for everyone. 2,000 slot machines and 99 gaming tables. The Vine, featuring top national music and comedy acts. The dining options. The Great Portico by Fabio Viviani. The Farmers Market Buffet, the Social Cafe and Bar. And the 14,000 square foot European style spa. Del Lago offers massages, body treatments, and facials, plus a full-service salon. Visit DelLagoResort.com for more information.
Cayuga Lake National Bank, offices in Union Springs and Aurora, a fine sponsor of this show for over 30 years. DA Liquor on Bridge Street in Seneca Falls. Amy Padula and her team will find the right spirit for you every time. When you stop in, tell Amy the dog sent you. The Omen Theater on William Street in Lyons. See what's playing this week at omentheater.com. Located off New York State Thruway Exit 41, the McGee Diner has earned their reputation as a popular family restaurant, serving country, fresh, home-cooked meals daily. Stop in for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and check out their menu at mcgeediner.com. The Child Advocacy Center of the Finger Lakes is a child-friendly location where allegations of physical or sexual abuse are responded to by a multidisciplinary team of professionals. The team works together to conduct a thorough investigation and to provide necessary support services to children and their non-offending caregivers with a goal of minimizing further trauma to a child. Seneca Metals is an award-winning company that has earned a reputation of going above and beyond to protect the environment and support their community. As an EPA inspector once said, their operation is head and shoulders above the rest. And the Newark Pilots of the Perfect Game Collegiate Baseball League, a minor league team with a major league ballpark. Season ticket packages available at newarkpilots.com. And the Wilson Press in Seneca Falls. My good pal Rich Rickey and his team can handle all of your printing and mailing needs. Visit them online at wpress.com.
Welcome back, everybody. It's a dog with you along with Mitch Rowe here on the show. It's hard to believe, 3:23. We'll probably go a couple minutes past the 3:30 hour. Why don't you throw up that logo for me if you would? You know, we're happy to bring on a brand new sponsor of the Weber Show. They're going to kick off on January 1st as an official sponsor, but I wanted to send some love their way. It's the Bostrom Farms. That's located in Stanley, New York on 5 and 20 as you head out toward Canandaigua, past the landfill out there. It's on the right-hand side. Kevin and his team and the management group, Kevin was on last week, did a great job, and we really appreciate them coming on as a sponsor. We always like to say thank you to our sponsors more often than I can think of, because they really, without them, we wouldn't be able to do a talk show. So thank you, Kevin, and thank you to Bostrom Farms. By the way, if you missed it at the beginning of the show today, Bostrom Farms is very generous. They gave away a country ham for Christmas, for the holidays, and all you had to do is like and share my show with Kevin last week, and we had a phenomenal turnout with likes and shares and a lot of commentaries on it. The winner was drawn this afternoon. John called me. I believe John is one of the owners, and the winner is Mary D. Porter. Mary lives in Clifton Springs, New York. So congratulations, Mary D. Porter. If anybody is watching my show and knows a Mary D. Porter in Clifton Springs, give her a call and congratulate her and tell her to get over to Bostrom Farms and pick up that wonderful country ham. Well, let's go back to Mitch as we go a couple minutes past the 3:30 hour. Mitch, I was thinking about, Nick Ciotti's a good friend of both of ours. I've known Nick many, many years. It's hard for him to get him out of that role. He's still involved doing some stuff on the financial side of it.
Yes, he is. Around the time that the board invited me to come back on an interim basis as acting county manager, they asked Nick to come back under a professional services agreement to provide some assistance to the county finance department. When I was with the county before, both as planning director and then county manager, Nick was the elected county treasurer, and in the way things were set up then, the bulk of the financial activities happened with Nick and the office of the county treasurer. There was a public referendum vote, as I understand it, a couple years ago to restructure the office of the county treasurer and to create a new centralized finance department with the county, which did happen, and in part related to some of the issues raised with the audit and with a vacancy in the directorship of the county finance department. And oh, by the way, a woman named Haley Stevens was hired by the board in October. She's off to a fabulous start. I've been so impressed with her hitting the ground running and with her picking up the intricacies and the particulars here in Seneca County. She was with Ontario County working in finance but not as a director, so she stepped up and she's doing great. And Nick has been really, really helpful in terms of institutional knowledge here at Seneca County, his general financial expertise. It's been part-time, a few days a week. He's not golfing too much these days, but I know he will be again soon.
Sure.
But he has just been a great help in this transition period in leadership at the county. And I know his heart's in it. It's not about, a paycheck or, a consulting contract. His heart is here, and he's been great.
Well, I got to tell you, I always like Nick, and I think about Seneca County, Seneca County Board of Supervisors and all the employees that work up there in those offices. I've had the opportunity to go through several of them. I think we don't show enough love to those people that are down in the ranks, whether they're a beginner regarding getting their job, maybe at a lower level pay. But it takes everybody, as you know, to make it happen. And I think you coming on today and sending some love and praise to these employees and wherever department they're working in, that without them, it'd make your job much more difficult, and the people that are reporting up to you as well. So I think we lose sight of that sometimes, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because it really does take an army to win.
It absolutely does. And, when Josh and I were talking last week, one of the challenges that a county like Seneca has had over the years is retaining good employees, who maybe have an opportunity to go to another county that might pay a little bit more. And I mentioned that the board in the last couple of years has been negotiating higher cost of living increases through the bargaining agreements, and then passing that on to management and looking at upgrading staff, doing maybe a little more than they used to do, in part to recognize the good work that's being done, but also to get at the retention issue. And I think this board right now, of the 14 members, I was thinking about it preparing to come on your show in terms of what's different then to now. 9 of the 14 members were on the board when I was here before, 5 that were not. But I do sincerely believe that this group of 14 appreciates the work that the county employees day-to-day do, and are looking. Obviously, you have to balance not raising taxes and being fiscally responsible with taxpayer money and the like. But I do think that this group of 14 has been very mindful of respecting the work that the county employees at all levels are doing, and trying to balance that fiscal responsibility with compensation that's not only appropriate for the work being done, but with an eye towards retaining good workers who might otherwise pursue another opportunity. And it's an intangible also, and if you feel like you're part of a team and your work is valued, I think some people might be willing to work for a little less in that kind of an environment than if it was just about the paycheck.
I can't let you go until I bring up an issue. I know we're at 3:30. We'll spend a few extra minutes with Mitch, and we got to talk about some upcoming guests before we wrap up the year. Way back when Ted Young went to the board, you may have been there as the manager at the time, talking about revenue tax sharing with the villages and the towns and the hamlets of Seneca County. And Ted, to his credit, I haven't seen him in a while. I used to see him at the McGee Diner. And every so often, every several months, you'd see an article in the paper about the board is looking at it or thinking about it or discussing it. And then I heard from the board level, a couple of my members of close friends of mine that are on the board, saying that if it was ever approved, we'd be talking about giving Seneca Falls $23,000 to $28,000 a year, whatever number. It wasn't a huge number. Can you give us any update? Is that still something that's being discussed? Is that something that is think in your mind will ever get accomplished, or is that something we're just going to hold back and wait? Because it's been a topic that's been brought up a lot, I know.
A couple thoughts.
Okay.
Bob Heisen, 2 weeks ago had asked me to run a 10-year tab of the county sales tax share, and I ran the numbers. In 2007, Seneca County was bringing in, the county, it's 8%, so the state gets 4%, the county gets 4%. In 2007, the county was taking in about $16 million a year. Last year and this year, we're on track that the county will take in $25 million. Where just over a decade ago it was $16 million. And there was some talk. There's a couple things where you get into the sharing with the towns and the village, and it's also not unique to Seneca County. I think it was just after I left to go back to Rochester in 2014 when Mayor Young came in to talk about sharing the sales tax revenue. And then more recently, there was some talk while I was away with the Del Lago gaming revenue, which is significant, $2.5 million a year to the county, about sharing that. And I will tell you this, and this is timely with the board considering and likely voting tomorrow night on the 2019 budget. If it wasn't for the sales tax revenue that the county gets and the gaming revenue that the county gets from Del Lago, we would be raising county taxes. We are not raising county taxes this year. They were not raised in any substantial way last year. And if the county, you could argue that the county ought to share a piece of the sales tax revenue with the towns and villages or the gaming revenue. If that happened and the county gave up some of that revenue, they would otherwise have to raise taxes. So I don't want to call it a shell game, but if the county gave up that revenue, they would otherwise have to raise taxes. And so I think with the outlet mall and Del Lago and all the wineries, and you have a Thruway rest stop out on the Thruway and Petro, the sales tax is so important to Seneca County as a level of government that as a result you don't have to raise county taxes. So I could see both sides to sharing, but if the county shared, they'd otherwise have to raise taxes. So at the end of the day, town, village, school tax, county, if the county shared, they'd have to raise your taxes, and it would all kind of come out in the wash. And I think people should be thrilled that their county taxes are not being raised.
I agree. Well, Mitch, you've been a great guest. I'm going to wrap up with a couple of comments. We'll be back to him to close out the show in a couple of minutes. Before we sign off, I want to run through, Zach, a couple of things for you folks to understand. Upcoming guests, just so you know, we have one more guest this year for my show, and it's John LaManna, who's an outstanding local entertainer. He's in the same vein as our friend Nate Michaels, who's been on my program, I'd say 3 to 4 times, but we've never had John LaManna on. John is an outstanding guitar player. He also has a great voice. Young guy is going to be here next week. Now, please note, next week, the Weber Show will be airing at 2:30 because he has a commitment, and I said I would move up my show a half an hour to accommodate him. 2:30 next Monday, John LaManna is expected here. He'll sing a couple of songs. So that'd be kind of a neat way to get moving on toward Christmas holidays. Just so you know, after next week, I won't be doing any more of the Weber shows until 2019. Mike Wood will be my first guest next year. Mike, of course, just getting the job as the coach of the Watertown Rapids of the Perfect Game Collegiate Baseball League. So he's a local Seneca Falls boy. He'll be here on the 7th. We're looking at the 21st of January for you folks who have been driving me nuts about when you're going to get Mark Giuliano on, the head man at Del Lago. You've gotten all of his executives on here, but how about the big guy? Well, the big guy's confirmed to me that unless something changes, he'll be here on the 21st of January. Mark Giuliano, looking forward to that. He's got a phenomenal experience, and I understand he's doing a great job as leading our effort at Del Lago. So, folks, have a great week, everybody. And once again, congratulations goes out to that winner of that wonderful ham today, baby, Mary D. Porter out of Clifton Springs. For Mitch Rowe, along with my producer, Zach, this is the dog bidding you farewell. Enjoy your week, everybody.